Chapter 20. Higher Level. Huxley took another drag on his cigarette and flicked it against the wall opposite him.
Brigadier General Huxley,
I uttered. I was shocked to see him again, and even more shocked to find him standing before us now. I thought someone like him would be in an office somewhere in the capital.
I'm touched that you remember my name and face, but I thought you'd be happier to see me. It is your homecoming after all.
Sneered Huxley.
you know me then?
I demanded.
Of course I know you. You were one of our precious soldiers. One of our comrades, you and your brother both.
I raised my weapon and aimed it at him. Diane and John did the same. Even Seth, still carrying my brother over his shoulders, pointed a single revolver at Brigadier General Huxley. Huxley raised an eyebrow.
I've been a venerable host. I allow you into my place of work. I let you play with my pets. And this is how you thank me? You point guns at my head?
He mused, seemingly unperturbed by the weapons pointed in his direction.
Are you the one behind this madness?
I demanded.
Not at first,
Admitted Huxley.
but after this one,
He waved his hand nonchalantly in Seth's direction.
dispatched our visionary leader. It was up to me to pick up the torch.
And my brother?
I asked angrily.
Is he meant to be one of your pets too?
Huxley tried his best to feign confusion. He did a poor job of it,
Of course not.
he said.
You and your brother were meant to be under my protection. You are both very important to the great nation of Lud and will help secure our place in the world. Why do you think the military let you, a woman, sneak into our ranks without punishment?
Huxley extended his arms outward, as if he was welcoming us into his home.
We were more than happy to have you both under our roof.
I think we've heard quite enough from you.
Said Diane. There was none of the usual teasing or lightheartedness in her voice. Both Diane and John fired at Huxley. The bullets ripped through his body and he hit the floor with a thud. No one moved to approach the fallen body. I was surprised. I didn't expect Diane or John to be so trigger-happy, especially with such a high-profile person. Didn't they want to question him? I thought. They must have had their reasons, or orders, to act this way. Both Diane and John had fired their weapons, but not Seth. Was Seth not told everything about the mission? My first instinct was to fire off a series of questions for the pair, but I held my tongue. Though deep bonds form fast on the battlefield, I had to remind myself that I had only just recently met them and their mysterious organization. The Brigadier General lay on his back in the hallway. A few ragged coughs escaped Huxley's body, the last sounds of a dying man. At least, that's how it normally happens. Shakily, Huxley got to his feet. His clothes were riddled with holes, but there were only the faintest spots of blood where the barrage of bullets had pierced his body. He brushed himself off and glared in the direction of John and Diane.
I wasn't finished talking.
He growled. Diane shot a worried look at John.
That's not good.
She uttered.
That shouldn't be possible.
Rasped John. I could sense a tinge of fear in John's voice. I saw that Seth was gingerly placing my brother against the wall so that he could fight if he needed to. Huxley laughed.
With the right vision, almost anything is possible. As long as you have all the parts, that is.
He narrowed his eyes at Seth and then fixed his gaze on me.
I have you to thank for that, Aubrey Rosid.
What are you talking about?
I demanded.
I'd never seen you before that day and we never even met.
After checking the personnel lists, I found out who was missing. After I knew you ran off, I investigated the warehouse. I was able to put together what happened and found the spot where the invader let you live. But more importantly, I found the blood. Not a single one of our men were able to put a scratch on it when it paid a visit to us all those years ago. But you
He slowly clapped his hands in mock praise.
were able to spill some of its blood. And that is just what we needed. We already had Alpha and Omega, but we still needed Gamma. Of course, we would have loved to acquire the source, but a few drops were better than nothing.
I thought back to the blueprints and vials of blood that I had discovered in the laboratory earlier. The blueprints had mentioned a subject alpha, a subject omega, and a subject gamma, but there had only been vials of blood for alpha and omega. Huxley just said they only had a few drops from subject gamma, and he was thanking me for getting it for them. He was thanking me for what I did all those years ago when Seth came to Fort Romekin. He was thanking me for wounding Seth and spilling some of his blood. The realization crept over me. When Huxley and the blueprints said subject gamma, they meant Seth, or more accurately, his blood.
I've heard enough.
Grumbled Seth. With lightning speed, he rushed forward and threw a punch at Huxley. I heard a loud crack, and I was sure that Huxley's neck had been snapped by the force of the blow, but Huxley had caught Seth's fist without so much as budging. Huxley smirked.
But when you have all three subjects, alpha, omega,
Huxley took hold of Seth's arm and flung him into the wall.
and gamma,
He hissed.
you can do amazing things to a human body.
The wall cracked where Seth's body slammed into it. He barely had time to move out of the way before Huxley threw another punch at him. The punch missed, but the wall cratered inward when his fist smashed into the corridor's concrete wall. The hallway shook from the force of the blow, and I was afraid the roof would cave down on top of us. Diane, John, and I fell back down the corridor to give the two room to engage each other. Seth launched a flurry of punches and kicks, but Huxley blocked all of them with relative ease. He didn't look like he was even trying. It was obvious that Huxley wasn't a normal human any longer. I pictured the third blueprint in my mind, the one that required blood from alpha, omega, and gamma. The result of that combination had looked human.
John,
I grabbed his shoulder.
do you remember those blueprints we saw in the lab?
I asked hurriedly. He nodded.
I was having the same thought.
What blueprints?
Diane pressed.
They were instructions on how to make the creatures we saw and fought already. It listed out the ingredients, all the various animal parts and blood from either a subject alpha or a subject omega.
Explained John.
But there was a third set of blueprints requiring blood from the previous two subjects, alpha and omega, but also a subject gamma. The result created something that still had a human form.
Diane's eyes grew wide. It was clear she understood what John and I were getting at. Like John before, this was the first time I had seen anything resembling fear flash across her face.
And you didn't mention this earlier because?
She demanded.
I didn't think it mattered. We were going to blow it all up anyway.
I shot back.
But Huxley must have enhanced himself.
But they didn't have any vials of subject gamma's blood.
Noted John.
It's Seth,
I asserted.
That scar on Seth's face is where I managed to graze him with a bullet when he first invaded the bunker. That's how Huxley and his scientists got a sample of Seth's blood.
I grabbed Diane by the wrist.
I know Seth isn't normal. You know Seth isn't normal. Subject gamma is how they refer to Seth.
I explained. John and Diane glanced at each other. They didn't look as shocked as I would have expected. Diane put her hand on top of mine and gave it a squeeze.
If we get out of this, we need to talk.
She gulped.
What do you mean, if?
I huffed. Down the hallway, Seth was busy taking a beating from Huxley. His face was bloodied, and his movements were starting to slow. For every blow that Seth dodged or blocked, Huxley landed too. Seth managed to drive a knee into Huxley's ribs, which caused him to clutch his side and stagger backward. Seth took the opportunity to retreat a bit. He leaped backward, unsheathed his sword, and drew a single revolver. He waited to see what kind of move Huxley would make.
That's a cute toy.
Huxley jibed. Brigadier General Huxley reached down to his boot, drew out a simple combat knife, and unholstered his own pistol. He spun the knife in his hand a few times before dashing towards Seth. He slashed at Seth's midsection. Seth blocked it with his sword and brought up his revolver to fire at Huxley's own chest, but he slammed it down with an elbow, and Seth's bullet buried itself harmlessly into the floor. The pair were locked in close quarters combat, trading slashes and firing their guns, trying to find an opening in each other's defenses. Seth was doing better now that he was armed. I didn't have any affection for Seth, but if he went down, I was sure to follow.
We need to help him.
I urged.
They're too close to each other and they're moving too fast. If we start firing, we could hit Seth. He's tough, but he won't take a bullet as well as Huxley does.
John asserted. Huxley was starting to give a little ground. He was a soldier like I was. We preferred firearms and tactical firefights. We weren't used to fighting hand-to-hand or with blades, and especially not for so long. Huxley jabbed his knife at Seth's exposed neck. Rather than block it with his sword, Seth brought up his revolver to knock the knife aside. Huxley didn't anticipate that kind of move and had left himself open. Bullets hadn't worked well on any of the other creatures or Huxley, so Seth intended to bring his sword down and slash Huxley from his shoulder to his hip in an attempt to cut him down and end the fight. Huxley was fast, however. He brought his arm up to catch the blade, willing to sacrifice a limb to save his life. Seth's sword had been able to cut the flesh of the other creatures we encountered at the base, but the blade didn't cleave through Huxley's flesh as expected. It hit Huxley's forearm and stopped dead. Now Seth was the one who was open. Huxley dropped his pistol and tossed the knife over to his free hand. He slashed in an arc and his blade bit deep into Seth's flesh. Seth dropped both his gun and sword and staggered backward. Huxley didn't stop, though. He grabbed Seth by the collar and held him up. He launched a flurry of punches into Seth's face and finished by throwing him at our feet. Blood ran from the sides of Seth's mouth and he coughed, spraying a red mist into the air.
Shoot him!
Diane bellowed. John, Diane, and I fired everything we had at Huxley. He didn't even pretend to care. It was obvious none of our bullets were having any effect. Huxley took a step toward us. Diane grabbed Seth and pulled him toward us. She drew her own combat knives and took a step in front of him.
John, make sure he doesn't bleed out,
she barked. John tore off his sleeve and used it to put pressure on Seth's chest wound.
It's not a fatal wound.
Huxley jeered.
I don't want to kill it. Once I finish off you two, I'll take it back to the lab so we can use it.
Huxley stared at me.
Aubrey Rosid, come back home.
He beckoned.
Why are you working with these mongrels?
The military was doing horrible things to innocent people.
I shouted at him.
That thing is responsible for killing many of your allies. It killed your squad. Didn't you care about them?
Huxley challenged.
Of course I did. I know he killed them, but we thought we were fighting for our country. The military used me, and it used them. If they had known what the military was doing, they never would have taken part in it. I'm trying to do the right thing to honor their memory.
When the future fighting is finished, the world will be a better place.
Huxley asserted.
It isn't too late to return to our side. I need you to come back to us, you and your brother both.
I'll never come back. I won't let you and your scientists make any more monsters.
I raged. Huxley flashed a toothy grin.
Monsters? That's no way to talk about your family.
He taunted.
Why do you think the one you call Seth, let you live? Subject Gamma recognized one of its own. I already told you. You and your brother are some of the most important people in Lude. You two are our precious Subject Alpha and Subject Omega. The secrets in your blood helped make all of my pets possible.